to bring in one more voice on this, too. Bernard Whitman is a Democratic strategist. He's the president and CEO of Whitman Insight Strategies, LLC. I'm going to do a bit of a switcheroo here, Bernard, because I want you to try to get my head around, if you can, this whole 8-point lead in Iowa. Mitt Romney wins Iowa over Rick Santorum. And now, apparently, not so much. There's this guy named Edward True, love the last name, who was actually at this very unique small precinct, who said, I saw 2 votes for Romney, and when I looked at the results, they were recorded as 22 votes. Let's hear from him, and then I want to ask you about it.
I started checking things, and I seen the numbers reported by the county, and then went on to check it by the precinct. And when I seen it, I actually had to do a double take on it, because first, I questioned my own self, and then after seeing it again, I noticed, hey, there's something wrong here.
Okay, fascinating, unbelievable. It doesn't really matter when it comes to the delegate count, but there's something about momentum, and there's something about this whole lore, as John Avalon has written, about being the three-peater, the guy who's made history, Mitt Romney, done what no one could do before. But will this matter to the race?
You know, you may think, what does a handful of votes matter in a contest that happened a couple weeks ago? The truth is, if Newt Gingrich can actually get very close to Romney or have a surprise overtaking of Romney in South Carolina, and on top of that, we find out that, in fact, Rick Santorum beat Mitt Romney in Iowa, that can truly shake things up in Florida. I mean, right now, Mitt Romney has a huge lead in Florida, 43 to 19%. But if you take the fact coming out of today that perhaps Rick Santorum actually beat Romney by a handful of votes, you come in South Carolina over the weekend, we find Romney coming within only a couple points of Newt Gingrich after having such a huge lead. That could completely upend the race in Florida and have an entirely new ball game down south in the GOP primaries.
Well, I appreciate you, Bernard Whitman, rolling with our breaking news this morning, as well as Eric Erickson and Paul Steinhauser. I think, by the way, real quickly, 9:15 a.m., is that when we're getting certified votes, Paul? 9:15?
Yeah, 9:15 Eastern. You got it. Out in Des Moines, we sent our team out there.
We're going to watch for you to be able to report to us for that on what those certifications say. It could be a very big headline. Thanks, guys.
From Washington, our panel to chime in, Eric Erickson, editor-in-chief of RedState.com, Democratic strategist Bernard Whitman, and CNN political editor Paul Steinhauser. Paul, you're on the hot seat first here this morning. So, you know, Gingrich is facing that interview. We hear excerpts are going to be aired. How do you think that is going to affect him leading in?
Listen, this storyline has been out there for a long time, ever since he jumped into the race last spring. And he's been talking about how he's made mistakes in his personal lives, and he's said he's repented for this. He's dealt with this a number of times. Polls indicate that most voters are kind of giving a pass on this, but it really depends on what she says. But his campaign already, his surrogates have been active in going after ABC and trying to, first of all, prevent them from, or try to persuade them from not airing this interview. But if it does happen, he's going to have to talk about it most likely at our debate. That's going to happen right behind me there tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned.
All right, Eric, let's talk about the poll here. And I'm not sure, I would imagine that this new poll that we have also has Perry at the bottom of the pack. And yesterday you said on your website that Perry should just resign before the debate. You say Rick Perry's final act could actually be kingmaker here and have an impact. Can you explain that?
Yeah, he's at 6% of the polls, and most polls have shown that the second preference for the overwhelming majority of his voters are Newt Gingrich. Likewise, there's a good number of undecided voters. You had Sarah Palin come out now 2 days ago saying if she was in South Carolina, she would vote for Newt Gingrich. If Rick Perry were to do the same and leave before Saturday, the momentum Newt Gingrich already has from the Monday debate coming into tonight, along with Palin and Perry, could push him up and make him very competitive in South Carolina. If you have the news coming out as well that maybe Mitt Romney didn't actually win Iowa, maybe it was Santorum, then you've got a good wind at Newt Gingrich's back to push him into the lead.
And what do you think about these leaks with his ex-wife? Do you think that'll affect him at all?
You know, I think to a degree, look, people would otherwise be talking about Mitt Romney having $15 million in Cayman Island accounts. Instead, they're going to be talking about Newt Gingrich's wife. But the difference is that most people already knew that this was out there. Marion Gingrich had given an interview to Esquire magazine a while back, so people have already taken that into account to a degree.
All right, Bernard, if you can chime in here. You've worked on 5 presidential campaigns, as I understand it here, including Mondale and Dukakis. You know that one bad image or one bad line can actually crash a campaign. So let's talk about tax returns here. Mitt Romney says that he might release his tax returns in April. New Jersey's Governor Chris Christie, who is a big Romney supporter, is saying, hey, I think you need to release them sooner than later. Let's listen to this and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
What I would say to Governor Romney is, if you have tax returns to put out, you should put them out. You put them out sooner rather than later, because it's always better, in my view, to have complete disclosure, and especially when you're the front runner.
So is this going to be a huge issue for him in South Carolina?
Well, I think Christie's right up to a point. It's clear Mitt Romney wants to delay the results of these tax returns until after he's sealed up the nomination. And frankly, the last thing Mitt Romney can afford right now is another surprise to come out and have the shift be really about the fact that he's a multimillionaire. He's paying 15% in taxes, which is less than half the rate paid by most Americans. And it's going to come up again with all the attacks that Newt Gingrich has labeled on Mitt Romney about Bain Capital. But the one additional thing I'll say about Newt Gingrich is men may have given him a pass for his private life, but women certainly haven't. And we see that in the CNN poll released yesterday. He is within 4 points of Mitt Romney, but there is a huge gender gap. Newt Gingrich is behind Mitt Romney by 18 points among women. And I think when you have things like this interview with Mary Gingrich coming back up, that is going to underscore the fact that women just do not see Newt Gingrich as an appealing figure. And so it is no wonder, given that Mitt Romney wants to delay the results of his tax returns until well after he's sealed the nomination process.
All right, interesting point. Thank you very much, Bernard Whitman, Paul Steinhauser, and Eric Erickson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You know what, Paul, if you hang on for a minute, I'd like to bring in Bernard Whitman, Democratic strategist. He was with us a little bit earlier. You're hearing all of this latest craziness that's happening. What do you make of this change now in Iowa?
You know, I think this underscores the fact that the GOP primary circuit thus far has been nothing more than a sideshow and a carnival. I mean, you've had all these crazy actors: Donald Trump, Herman Cain, Michelle Bachmann, Ron Paul, anybody but Mitt Romney. And what this shows is that Mitt Romney, in fact, did not win the Iowa caucus. And I think this is Mitt Romney's biggest nightmare, going into South Carolina, where he thought, this is sort of shocking, South Carolina is going to be the place that coronates me. In fact, now he finds out that he didn't win Iowa, he did win New Hampshire, he may not win South Carolina. This completely takes the wind out of his sails into Florida. And I got to tell you, I think odds on Mitt Romney is going to be the nominee, but it absolutely calls into question the legitimacy of Mitt Romney's candidacy going forward. And I think we're going to see the GOP primary drag on for another few months, which is good news for the Democrats.
You call it a circus sideshow, and sure, it's always fun to sort of have sport and parlor games and all the rest, but the same thing happens with the Democrats, too. It gets real goofy. I believe I was so exhausted by June in 2008 watching Hillary and Barack Obama go at it that we called it a circus back then, too. So here's my question for you, Mr. Democrat. How are the Democrats going to use this? Will they use it? Will it be a smart thing to use this sort of confusion in Iowa to the Democrats' advantage going into the general election? Oh, the great thing to be a Democrat now is you don't have to. We just can sit by, watch this unfold, watch Newt Gingrich absolutely pillory Mitt Romney over this for the next few days. And I think that the real story is going to be what the effect in Florida is going to be, because we saw after Mitt Romney supposedly won Iowa, then won New Hampshire, Newt Gingrich had been far ahead in South Carolina, far ahead in Florida. That disappeared. Now Gingrich is coming on to Romney's heels, and I think that the 24-point lead that Mitt Romney has right now going to Florida is absolutely going to collapse. I suspect, again, Mitt Romney will still squeak through in South Carolina, will still win in Florida, will still ultimately be the nominee. But these questions about do the Republicans really like him? Can he bring out the conservative vote? What do evangelicals think? Can he actually get turnout in the fall? These questions are going to linger. And as a Democrat, we can simply sit by and watch the Republican Party fight for its soul and then try to come together in the summer and the fall.
All right. It is just about 6:30.